Hello and welcome back to Season 5 of Mind-Blowing Truths. We've curated the most fascinating, brain-boosting, and bizarre facts about humanity, animals, and the cosmos, all delivered through a humorous lens while ensuring the highest level of intellectual depth. In this season premiere, do you know why time seems to move faster as we get older? And what kind of entity could punch a hole straight through the Milky Way without leaving a trace? Let's dive in. Why does time feel like it's accelerating as we age? Physically speaking, unless you are traveling near the speed of light or living on the edge of a black hole, time does not stretch or compress. Yet, it is an undeniable human experience that the older we get, the faster time seems to slip away. Why is that? One hypothesis, which many find logical though it remains unproven, suggests that as you age, a single year represents a progressively smaller fraction of your life. Think of it this way, to a 5-year-old, 1 year is a staggering 20% of their entire existence. For a 50-year-old, that same year accounts for only 2% of their total lifespan. Proportionally, every passing year feels shorter than the one before it. A second hypothesis suggests that time feels faster simply because your brain is getting older. Seriously. The brain's information processing speed typically peaks between the ages of 18 and 30, gradually declining afterward. The brain doesn't measure time in a linear flow of seconds and minutes like a clock, instead, it relies on the number of new, unique memories created. The idea is that as the brain slows down, it generates and stores fewer images, and those images lack detail and sharpness. Since every memory is tied to a point in time, fewer mental snapshots create the illusion that time is passing more quickly. The third hypothesis is a bit more somber, suggesting that as we grow up, our lives become more mundane and forgettable. In childhood, almost every experience is a first. Your first time skipping school, your first perfect grade, or the first time you teased a dog and got bitten. These firsts stimulate the brain to create and store deep, vivid, and detailed memories. When you look back on those childhood experiences, they feel crowded and vibrant, giving the impression that those early years lasted forever. In contrast, adulthood often becomes a series of dull loops, the morning commute, a rushed lunch, and the hurried return to family in the evening. Your first day at a new job is exhausting but memorable. 10 years later, your daily routine is so bland that your brain doesn't even bother recording it. A lack of novel experiences causes weeks to blur together and vanish. Your efficient daily habits and work routines have essentially killed your perception of time. Of course, you aren't to blame, your brain is just being too smart for its own good. When you encounter familiar experiences, the brain stops paying attention to the details and bundles them into a single, summary memory, like working, eating lunch, or having dinner, just to save storage space. Essentially, if your year is just a tape replayed 365 times, your brain compresses those identical segments. When you look back at a period filled with summary memories and devoid of unique events, a year feels like it passed in the blink of an eye. So, how can you make 2026 more memorable? In theory, it's simple: break the routine. Leave the office for a few days, visit places you've never been, eat new foods, and talk to people you've never met. Start planning now to create those lasting memories. Moving on to the cosmos, the Milky Way is acting very strange. A mysterious entity has pierced through our galaxy, leaving a jagged tear in space. What has scientists scratching their heads is that this entity emitted absolutely no light, heat, or radiation. Yet, its mass could be millions of times that of the Sun, stretching across dozens of light-years. What on Earth, or rather, in the universe, is it? First, this mysterious entity didn't punch through the main disk of the Milky Way. The tear actually occurred in a stellar stream identified as GD1. If you've followed the channel long enough, you might remember when we called the Milky Way a cannibal galaxy. To reach its current size, the Milky Way has swallowed at least 5 to 15 significant galaxies over its 13 billion-year history. The smallest of these contained about 10 million stars, while the largest held over 100 million. For context, there are between 100 billion and 400 billion stars orbiting the center of the Milky Way. Occasionally, a globular cluster or a dwarf galaxy wanders too close to the Milky Way and is stretched or even torn apart by its massive tidal forces. This creates a stellar stream, essentially a river of stars orbiting our galaxy. These streams aren't rare, at least 25 have been discovered, and there is even a region in the northern hemisphere of the Milky Way known as the Field of Streams. GD1 is no exception. Millions of years ago, it was likely a small globular cluster wandering nearby before the Milky Way's gravity stretched it into a long thread. First identified in 2006, GD1 sits above the galactic disk and is one of the longest stellar streams known, spanning 80 degrees across the sky. However, GD1 only became a sensation in 2019 when astronomers discovered mysterious missing sections in the stream, as well as a spur where a group of stars had been knocked out of the main line. These features indicate that something punched a jagged hole right through this unfortunate stream of stars. By backtracking the orbits of the disturbed stars, researchers reconstructed the violent encounter. According to the data, a massive entity, with the mass of millions of suns and a width of 30 to 65 light-years, slammed straight through GD1, scattering stars like debris. The bizarre part is that there are no luminous objects near this hole. The entity left no trace of light, heat, or radiation, meaning it doesn't match any known star cluster or black hole. Whatever hit GD1 has either vanished or is still there, invisible. Scientists suspect that the culprit is a dense clump of dark matter. Dark matter is the invisible mass that makes up 27% of a universe's content and 85% of its total matter, yet it has never been directly detected. It doesn't emit, absorb, or reflect light, making it impossible to see. So far, we only know it exists because its gravity keeps stars from flying out of galaxies and bends the path of light. It's like knowing a ghost is present only because you see its shape pressed against a curtain. The idea is that if dark matter can clump into dense masses that silently slice through galaxies, the gap in GD1 might just be the beginning of countless scars that darkness has carved into the structure of the Milky Way. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that GD1 was hit by a fast-moving object that fled the scene, or perhaps it's something else entirely that we don't yet understand. It seems only the stars within GD1 truly know what happened.